In the small, lively village of Niamira, where children's laughter echoed through dusty streets, and elders shared stories under the shade of mango trees, 3 teenagers named Ao, Kofi, and Zuri faced a decision that would change their lives forever. For years they had dutifully attended school, following the routines of lessons, assignments, and examinations. Yet a restlessness had begun to grow within them, a yearning for adventure beyond the familiar walls of their classrooms. And one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, they walked past the neon-lit streets of the nearby town, mesmerized by the glowing lights, pulsating music, and crowds of excited youth spilling out from the famous nightclub that everyone seemed to talk about. The air thick with the scent of fried delicacies, sweet smoke, and a hint of perfume, and Ao, always the daring leader, whispered to his friends with a spark in his eyes, "Just for tonight, let's skip school and see what the world feels like beyond these walls." While Kofi, who had always been curious but cautious, hesitated for a moment before nodding, and Zuri, torn between obedience and the thrill of curiosity, finally agreed, swayed by the laughter of her friends and the hypnotic rhythm of the music that called to her soul. And so, driven by a mix of rebellion, excitement, and youthful pride, they abandoned their evening lessons, slipping through narrow paths and quiet streets, their hearts racing with anticipation and fear, unaware that the night held lessons far harsher than any they had learned in school. As the city whispered warnings in every shadowed alley, and distant elders shook their heads, sensing that some teachings could only be learned through experience, and with every step toward the nightclub, they were drawn deeper into a world of dazzling lights and hidden dangers, a world where innocence was tested, friendships strained, and choices carried consequences far greater than the temporary thrill of freedom. And though they laughed and imagined the stories they would tell the next day, a subtle tension tugged at the edges of their excitement, hinting that the night would soon reveal the delicate balance between temptation and wisdom. For in chasing the glitter of the city, they were about to discover how one impulsive decision could ripple through the course of their lives, forever altering the paths of 3 young souls who had dared to leave the safety of school for the unknown allure of the night. As Ao, Kofi, and Zuri stepped into the nightclub, the world transformed into a dazzling kaleidoscope of lights, music, and movement, the heavy bass vibrating through the floor and into their bones, the air thick with the scent of perfumes, fried snacks, and sweet smoke, while bodies swayed rhythmically, each person lost in their own moment. And at first, the trio felt a rush of liberation, their worries and school responsibilities fading beneath the hypnotic glow of neon and laughter. Yet beneath the surface of glittering excitement, subtle signs of danger emerged. For the crowd was not merely innocent revelers, but a maze of fleeting friendships, hidden agendas, and temptations waiting to ensnare the unwary. And Ao, always eager to impress, approached a group of older youths offering drinks and cigarettes, feeling a mix of thrill and pride, while Kofi, whose curiosity often overrode caution, accepted the invitations too, unaware that each choice carried risk. And Zuri, initially hesitant, found herself laughing freely and enjoying attention, feeling a fleeting sense of confidence she had never experienced in school. and the music, intoxicating and relentless, drew them further from their comfort zones. The lights dazzling their senses, and the energy of the crowd blurring their judgment, while shadows lingered in corners where mischief brewed and whispered warnings went unnoticed, and the trio, swept by peer pressure and the allure of belonging, failed to notice the subtle ways the nightclub tested their values, resilience, and moral compass. Yet even in this heady atmosphere of excitement, a quiet tension simmered beneath their smiles, a hint that the night's pleasures carried consequences they could not yet imagine. And as the hours passed, the initial thrill began to mix with confusion and unease, small signs of regret creeping in even as they continued to dance, drink, and laugh. And though they remained oblivious to the deeper lessons unfolding around them, the night was already setting in motion events that would challenge their innocence, reshape their friendships, and teach them that true freedom was never found in mere indulgence, and that the glittering illusion of excitement often masked the hidden costs of impulsive choices, preparing them for a journey of realization and growth that would begin the moment the music faded and reality returned. By the time the neon lights dimmed and the thumping music slowed to a lazy hum, Ao, Kofi, and Zuri began to feel the first tangible consequences of their impulsive adventure. Ao's head throbbed from the drinks he had accepted with careless bravado. Kofi's pride ached as he realized the older youths had mocked his attempts to impress them, and Zuri, whose laughter had been loudest all night, now clutched her stomach in discomfort, a mixture of fear and nausea gnawing at her. And as they stumbled into the dimly lit back alleys, trying to find their way home, the city revealed its harsher truths. Shadows moving where no light penetrated, and distant echoes of shouting, reminding them that the world was not always playful or safe. Yet the consequences were not only physical, for the weight of regret settled heavily upon their hearts. The memory of unattended school lessons, the disapproval of teachers and parents, and the realization of reputational damage gnawed at their youthful confidence. And though they tried to laugh off the fear and discomfort, a seed of awareness had taken root, whispering that freedom without foresight carried a steep price, and every misstep, every flirtation with temptation, and every impulsive choice had set in motion a chain of events beyond their immediate control, while the night, which had begun as a thrilling escape, slowly transformed into a lesson in responsibility, humility, and the fragility of trust. And as they navigated the quiet streets, the glow of the distant nightclub fading behind them, they understood that innocence, once surrendered to reckless fun, demanded a price paid in fear, regret, and the slow awakening to adulthood. A realization that true liberation required wisdom, that every action echoed in ways they had not anticipated, and that the choices of a single night could leave indelible marks on lives still in their formative stage, teaching lessons far beyond textbooks or school walls. The following morning in Nyamira village, the absence of Ao, Kofi, and Zuri did not go unnoticed, as whispers began to swirl throughout the school compound, teachers questioning their whereabouts, classmates speculating wildly, and the small community buzzing with exaggerated tales of the previous night, while the trio, nursing throbbing headaches and bruised egos, tried to downplay their adventure, only to discover that in a place where everyone knew everyone, secrecy was impossible, and soon they were met with curious stares, hushed laughter, and pointed fingers as they walked through the hallways. Ziri, realizing that admiration had shifted into judgment. Kofi, struggling with the sting of embarrassment and guilt. And Ao, who had once led with pride, feeling the weight of accountability pressing upon him. For leadership brought not just influence, but also responsibility for the group's choices. And as the day progressed, the realization sank in that the actions of one night had consequences extending far beyond themselves, shaping reputations, straining friendships, and altering how peers perceived them. While the teacher's disappointment and the subtle reproach of parents highlighted that every choice, however small, could ripple outward in unforeseen ways. And though they attempted to joke about their adventure, laughter felt hollow, replaced by a growing awareness of the fragile nature of trust and respect. And as the village continued to murmur, the trio understood that true freedom came with foresight, that impulsive indulgence could tarnish character, and that escaping responsibility for even one night could invite long-lasting judgment, a lesson that would linger far longer than the echo of nightclub music, leaving them to confront the stark truth that choices carried not only immediate thrills, but also enduring consequences that tested resilience, humility, and the courage to rebuild what had been momentarily lost. Days passed, and the consequences of their nightclub adventure crystallized into life-changing lessons for Ao, Kofi, and Zuri as they faced the disappointment of teachers, the stern words of parents, and the lingering judgment of their community, forcing them to confront not only their mistakes but the deeper truths about temptation, peer pressure, and self-control. And Ao realized that leadership meant responsibility beyond personal thrill, understanding that guiding others required wisdom and foresight, while Kofi learned that courage was not in defiance but in making prudent choices. And Ziri recognized that fleeting attention and admiration could never replace respect earned through diligence, integrity, and commitment, and together they acknowledged that every action carried weight far beyond the immediate moment, that joy without thought could transform into regret, and that maturity was built on the ability to weigh consequences before yielding to impulse. And as they worked to rebuild trust with friends, teachers, and family, the trio discovered that growth often emerged from acknowledgement of one's errors and consistent effort to correct them, while the memory of neon lights and booming music remained not as a lure but as a stark reminder of the night that nearly derailed their future, a lesson etched deeply into their hearts about balancing ambition with prudence, fun with responsibility, and freedom with accountability. And as they shared reflections quietly among themselves, each felt a renewed determination to approach life with caution, awareness, and the understanding that true happiness is found not in reckless indulgence, but in disciplined choices, foresight, and the courage to own one's mistakes, transforming past errors into stepping stones for a wiser, stronger, and more resilient self. Months later, the story of Ao, Kofi, and Zuri had transformed from a cautionary tale whispered in school corridors to a source of inspiration for younger students. As the trio returned to school with renewed focus, determination, and purpose, participating actively in lessons, helping peers resist temptations, and showing through their actions that mistakes could become lessons if faced with honesty and courage. And while the memory of the nightclub adventure remained vivid, it was now colored with wisdom and understanding, serving as a reminder of the consequences of impulsive choices and the value of responsibility, discipline, and foresight. And Ao, having learned the true meaning of leadership, guided others with patience and prudence. Kofi, embracing thoughtful courage, became a voice of reason among his friends, and Zuri, having discovered the importance of self-respect and integrity, encouraged others to pursue admiration earned through effort rather than fleeting attention. And together they rebuilt trust with teachers, peers, and family, transforming their reputations from reckless youths into examples of resilience and growth. While their story spread through the village, reinforcing the importance of accountability, the cost of temptation, and the rewards of personal development. And as they shared their experiences with honesty and humility, the trio realized that life's challenges, though tempting to escape, offered opportunities to mature, to learn, and to inspire others, proving that even the most misguided choices could lead to profound growth when met with reflection, effort, and integrity. And that true redemption comes not from erasing mistakes, but from transforming them into lessons that guide the journey toward a wiser, stronger, and more responsible future.